the mystery babe.
Okay, favourite episodes. I've been unable to put this in order. I think it's easier for me to do favourite moments than it is to do favourite episodes, because some episodes will have your favourite moment of the entire series in it, but as a whole episode it doesn't hang together as your favourite episode. But I've had a go at it anyway. The way I've structured it is looking at each season, what were my favourite episodes, and I will tell you what my overall favourite episode was at the end. So season 1, my top 3 were 2 boats and a helicopter. The first Matt Jameson focused episode, and I believe the precise moment that I completely fell in love with this show. And I will be putting that moment, that precise moment, in my favourite moments list, which is coming up. When that thing happened, I was like, this show is it. this is one of the best shows I've ever seen, fact. And I really started to understand, just not just in that moment, but in that entire episode, you know, which made you laugh, it made you cry, it made you jump out your skin. Really felt like this show, this is going to end up as a show apart, and I've explained to you in the finale what I mean by the term a show apart, which is there are a number of shows which are just, they're in their own league. You know, you might have great enjoyment and stuff in other programs, but these are like, you just can't go, it's apples and pears is the point. So that's what we'll do. So season 1, 2 boats and a helicopter was my first, and then surprisingly probably to some people, but the Garveys at their best. To get to go back and see where these characters came from, and also the fact that they were fucked up long before the departure happened. There were issues, there were cracks literally in the foundations. Not quite, it was the wall, not rather, but anyway, you understand what I'm saying. There were cracks already in Kevin and Laurie's marriage. There was this kind of sense of impending doom, even around the happier characters. And I like that. And it was actually nice also to see the characters that their decline was triggered by the departure, to get more of a handle on what they actually lost. Because, you know, when you encounter Laurie and she's already in white, she's not speaking, she's basically a ghost, and then you see this, you know, vivacious, vibrant, compassionate, she's a healer, you know, she's a therapist, she's someone who helps people through their emotional traumas and distresses. And to see the difference between Laurie in that episode and Laurie later, it was, and to see what caused that drop, you know, it wasn't only the issues with her marriage with Kevin, you know, she was pregnant and then she wasn't pregnant, all of that stuff that she went through, it brought Laurie to life for me. It made her much more real, that episode, and as she ends up becoming my favourite character as this show progresses, it was a really key episode for me. Hugely emotional, and getting to see those backstories, getting to see the people prior to departure, still tear up now. And number 3 from season 1 is going to be CAIRO. I mean, how can it be anything else? I toyed with the idea of Gladys. So it was a really good episode, and I do think Gladys gets an honourable mention here. I do think that Gladys is the Red Wedding episode of The Leftovers. I think that's where people are either in or out. But I'm not including it in my favourites, because it would have been my favourites if I'd have stopped watching the show at season 1, but this list was really hard to come by. So it's CAIRO, because the reveals of Kevin's psychosis, of the remnant being a suicide cult, you know, the interactions that Jill and Laurie and Amy and Papa Garvey are having, it's just, from beginning to end, that episode is absolutely fantastic. and it was so surprising. You know, I've seen the reaction back, and if you've not seen that reaction, you need to go and watch it, because I am absolutely floored by that episode. And it was, for me, it was the juncture point for Patty, because I think prior to that episode I hated her. Like, I actually really hated the character, not in a love to hate way, just in a, oh, she's just, you know, woo, I can't stand that woman. And in this episode, I was so angry at her about what she was doing, but I really started to love her. You know, the way she's like fronting up to these two guys who have kidnapped her. They've kidnapped her, they've beaten her, it's all of this stuff. And just Anne Dowd in that episode is just absolutely fantastic. You know, the expressions on her face, the way that she delivers the lines. It's one thing I love about Anne Dowd is it's the way she delivers lines. They're not just, she doesn't just speak them. No one else but Anne Dowd could play Patty and it be as good. That's how I feel about how good she was in this role. You know, there are a bunch of moments, you're like, oh, you know, what to do, Kevin? What to fucking do? I can still remember it. You know, I don't just remember the words. I remember which words she put emphasis on. You know, I love the fact that process that actor must go through to know where to drop the emphasis in a sentence, because it's not typical. The way that she speaks isn't typical, and it makes you sit up and pay attention. I loved it. I absolutely love that episode. So that's my favourite episodes of season 1. But again, they're not miles away from other episodes. You have to keep in mind in all of these points that I loved pretty much every episode of this programme. So even attempting to make this list is pretty much impossible. And you could probably ask me this question on a different day and get some different results. Some would stick. So season 2, what are my favourite episodes? And they're in no particular order. First we've got International Assassin, because obviously I mean that was such a bold move. It could have been so bad, that episode. Like, it really could have been, you've jumped the shark, fuck this, I'm out, this is just fucking ridiculous. If it would have been executed poorly, that would have been the outcome for that episode. It was not the outcome of the episode, because it was done so well. I believed in that hotel. I did, you know, even when I was confused and didn't know what the fuck was going on, I wasn't finding it absurd or ridiculous. You know, obviously within reason it was, but I didn't disbelieve it in the universe that they created. It was absolutely real to me. I believe that's what Kevin was seeing. I believe that's what he was experiencing. I was absolutely gripped by the way that the action developed in that episode. A little tiny Patty presenting herself as a little girl and all vulnerable, and you suddenly, your gut twisted, thinking, God, not only is she a freaking genius, but she is that little girl. She is someone who has survived extraordinary abuse. How do we end her? And all of the interaction. I mean, that's the thing in this show. One of my favourite things about this show is every single scene between Patty and Kevin, because the chemistry between Anne Dowd and Justin Theroux is just off the charts. You'd struggle to think of other people that have that level of chemistry. You know, maybe, you know, Lord Varys and Tyrion in Game of Thrones. You know, two characters that have absolutely fantastic chemistry and they just kick off each other. Same Game of Thrones when we had Tywin and Arya. And what International Assassin did was give us a hell of a lot of that. You know, Patty is the politician. There's not, you know what I'm on about. There are just a million moments in that. The final moments in the orphan's well, when you get the realisation of just how broken Patty had been by being so abused. There's deeper and deeper levels that you can go into with that episode. You know, there's the relation to Greek mythology, there's the psychoanalytic interpretation of the episode. There are so many levels on which you can watch that episode that I think whatever worldview, you know, whether you're religious, whether you're a classicist, whether you're, you know, a psychologist, a scientist, there's all these different interpretations and ways that you can view and still enjoy and connect with that episode, which is just great. So that's International Assassin. And next to that we have I Live Here Now. I don't even think I need to explain why I love that episode to you. It's the freaking finale. It's out of this world. There are so many emotional, you know, high and low points. I'm not going to waffle on about that one. Lens. I'm not even sure if that's an episode that many people would consider up there as one of their favourite episodes, but it is my favourite, one of my favourite episodes, just for two scenes. You know, Erica's extraordinary rant at the fundraising event for the missing girls, and then the showdown between Nora and Erica over the departure questionnaire. Just, I lie, 3. And there's also the phone call with Penny Woodmore. It actually was Penny Woodmore on the phone. It just, and Patty and Kevin and all the adventures that are going on with them. That episode is non-stop and I absolutely loved it. For me, it actually marked a real turn in season 2. I thought the opening episodes were brilliant. I absolutely loved them, but I loved them about the same level that I loved season 1. So I was kind of thinking, hang on, people said this season was like way better than season 1, and by up to about episode 5 of season 2 I was like, I'm absolutely loving this exactly as much as I loved season 1. From the beginning of that rant from Erica onwards, season 2 was better than season 1 for me. It just absolutely exploded that season, and I loved it. I loved it, with the exception of episode 9, which I felt went back to a kind of sort of a grade B level of episode, and again within the context of the high standards of the leftovers. But 6, 7, 8 and 10 of that season were just, which obviously gives you the next favourite episode in that season, which was A Most Powerful Adversary. There are several scenes in this show that have made me cry more than anything ever, and certainly not on camera. So God only knows how much I would have cried if I'd have not been on camera, because I would have not had to speak and do a review and everything else. So that's season 2. Awesome season, and by the end I was really, really clear this was a much better season than season 1. Mostly I think because of the way that the first half of the season paid off in the second. You know, what I didn't realise was happening was how much stuff was being set up at the beginning of the season, and then from that moment in season 6 right through to the end, it was just deliver. It was non-stop. I loved it. I'm so grateful that this show was created, I can't even tell you. And in season 3, honestly, if I wasn't having to pick, I'd have said every episode. But if I had a gun to my head, or like, I tried to think to myself, you know, if I could only watch, you know, X episodes over again, what would I pick? Like, if I absolutely had to. So I went with G'day Melbourne and Certified, and It's a Matt World. I'm just going to call it Matt World for the purposes of this conversation, because I'm not saying that title over and over again 50 million times. It's just too much. I think my overall favourite episodes, just about tied in this show, are G'day Melbourne and Certified. And for slightly different reasons. I think Certified, because it was perfect. That episode was literally perfect, and there was so much trickery, and they tricked me. They didn't trick my wife, incidentally. My wife saw that suicide of Laurie coming. I can't remember when she pointed it out. I think I'll let you know when she put it out. I've just remembered. So if you go back, I mean, you've probably watched this like 5 million times, so I don't want to teach grandma to suck eggs, but every scene that Laurie's in can be interpreted more than one way, and they're guiding you away from the real thing that's happening into an equally believable alternative. And a scene for me that epitomises that is when she's doing the cooking with Grace. You know, she's chopping the carrots when Grace Playford is making the stew or the soup or whatever it is in that pot. And what Laurie's actually thinking is, I'm going to take those pills that I know are the dog sleeping pills, because Papa Garvey told us earlier. We saw the scene. You know, we saw Papa Garvey tell her about these dog tranquilizers. You know, and then she's like, yeah, leave me alone, I'll be fine with this. But at the same time, she's also having a really emotional conversation with Grace about her family and her kids, and, you know, and that kind of stuff with the shoes. You know, I didn't know what happened with the shoes. So when she turns around, there's a picture of Grace and her family, and there's the bottle of pills.
Their shoes were missing.
Sorry?
When they found their bodies, it was clear that they'd been walking for quite some time, but their shoes were missing. They weren't here at the house, they weren't with the kids. I've covered the ground in between 100 times. Looked through every pair donated to charity inside 100 kilometres. When Kevin talks to them, he's going to ask them where they put their shoes.
So if you're watching it completely consumed by this emotional conversation happening between these two characters, which I was, when that happens, after it, you look over and you see the that's what I saw. You see my face go. I saw the picture, and what I saw was Laurie seeing the picture and thinking, oh God, what an awful thing to happen to that woman. What was really happening was that she was trying to get Laurie out of the kitchen, and she was looking at those pills because she was about to throw them in the stew. It's just excellent. It's just as good as storytelling gets. And they're all the way through that episode. I've rewatched it now twice. And now, knowing where it ended, you can see all the things from the, you know, it starts with her suicide. The bloody song in the theme is suicide. You know, each of the conversations where we feel she's saying goodbye to characters for them, you know, she's saying goodbye for her as well. It doesn't really get better than that in terms of storytelling. So that's why Certified is my joint favourite episode, period. The reason for Good Day Melbourne. I mean, who writes that stuff? The cinematography in that episode arguably is the best cinematography in the programme. You know, and there are lots of moments that we can pick where there's great cinematography. I'm definitely not going to argue against that. But this episode in particular brought together all the elements of the show that I loved. You know, everything was dialed up to absolute maximum. You know, the use of music, the 3 different versions of Take On Me, just random and perfect, you know, for what was happening. You know, we had the people singing it, you know, Doctors Eden and Baker singing it in the thing. We had the brass band version, which I loved, as Kevin was going to find Evie at the library. And then we had the actual AHA version at the end. Just incredible. And the finale shots, you know, with that 2 iconic things for me from this whole show. When I think of this show, I will see these 2 scenes. It's both of them. It's Nora on the bed with the sprinklers going, and like the electric items in the room are blowing up in the background and like short circuiting. That gave me chills. That actually made, you know, the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. And then it finishing with the, you know, the almost permanent tears, you know, because we had the sprinklers had made us so wet and then it was just dripping off her eye. Amazing. That's going to be in my favourite moments, so continue watching for that. And the reason I included it's a Matt, let's just call it Matt World. The reason I included Matt World is because it was hilarious from beginning to end, and just, I couldn't see how any other group could have actually even come up with what happened on that boat. You know, what a way for Matt to not really lose his faith, but to let go of trying to be in control of that faith, if that makes any sense at all. You know, up until that point, he's like, I am the diviner. You know, I am going to make these series of events happen according to scripture, according to this version, even going so far as to literally write the sequel to the Bible, which is what the book of Kevin is. You know, he goes from Matt, that's his commitment. You know, he's absolutely committed to getting Kevin back to Miracle. He's convinced he knows it. He's convinced he has knowledge other people don't, and it's all on him to get this shit done. And through the course of events that he's taken through on that boat, he lets go. He really lets go. He lets go of getting Kevin back to Miracle. He lets go of being there at all. You know, he doesn't even carry on in this crusade. He is there for his sister. You know, he chooses people over this thing, which I think ultimately is the point of faith in the first place. You know, if your faith is pulling you away from people, you know, if your faith is separating you from people, you are not interpreting that faith correctly, in my humble opinion. And that's what I loved so much about this episode. You know, when he sits there and he had that conversation with David Burton, you know, when he's got him tied to the wheelchair. I loved it. It was fantastic. I also ended up completely falling in love with Matt during this show, even when I hated him. He was one of my favourite characters. I don't know when it happened. I think it must have started happening in season 2, somewhere in season 1. What I also loved about it was that for Matt, this was really a definitive curve in his redemptive arc. You know, this was a fundamental shift in his character that meant that he could reconnect with the people he loved most again. And he did not have much time left to do it because he's dying. You know, he reconnected with Mary. He was able to reconnect with Nora and be a proper brother, which allowed her to be a proper sister. And he was able to support her in fulfilling what she interpreted as her mission, rather than laying his mission on her. It was, I mean, I'm emotional now talking about it. So those are my favourite episodes.
Let the mystery be.